You know that feeling, man, when something in your brain just clicks, like a light switch you didn't even know was there gets flipped, and suddenly the buzzing noise that's been your life soundtrack just stops. Total silence. I take a long pull from this can of cheap lager. It tastes like victory, or maybe just cheap lager, I don't know. I'm sitting on the floor of my new apartment. Well, apartment is a generous word. It's a room. Four bare, white walls, a window overlooking a brick wall, and my duffel bag in the corner, holding everything I own that matters. It echoes when I breathe too loud, and it's the most peaceful, most beautiful place I've been in 5 years. The switch for me, it flipped 3 days ago. On a goddamn video call of all things. It wasn't some big, dramatic explosion like in the movies. It was quiet, a tiny little click in the back of my skull. And the person who flipped it without even having a clue what she was really doing was Harper, my ex-girlfriend. God, it feels good to say that word, ex. She thought she was making a point, proving something to our friend Ainsley, putting me in my place one more time. But all she really did was find the big, red eject button I was too soft, too damn conflict avoidant to press for myself. I should probably send her a thank you card, but honestly, I think I'll just have another beer instead. 5 years, man, we were together for 5 years. And the crazy thing is, it didn't start out like this. It never does, right? In the beginning, it was great. She was smart, funny, ambitious. She had this energy that just pulled you in. I felt like I'd won the lottery, but slowly, so slowly you don't even notice it, the dynamic shifts. I stopped being her boyfriend and started being her project. Her Project Owens. It was all framed as love, of course. I'm just trying to help you reach your potential, she'd say. It started with small things. She'd helpfully suggest a different shirt before we went out with her friends. That one just doesn't present you in the best light, honey. Then it was the stories I told. We'd be at a dinner party and I'd start telling a funny story from my old job and she'd jump in with a laugh. Oh, what Owen means to say is. And then she'd tell a polished, optimized version of my own memory. A version that made me sound more impressive, more ambitious, more like the kind of guy she wanted to be seen with. She was a curator and I was her prize exhibit. And me? I just let it happen. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I was a total victim. I was a co-conspirator in my own misery. I hate, and I mean hate, conflict. The idea of a big, screaming fight makes my stomach turn, so I just smile and nod. Yeah, you're right. Good point. I told myself it was just her way of showing she cared. It was easier to believe that lie than to face the truth, that the real me wasn't good enough for her curated life. My value was tied to how well I performed as her accessory. Leaving felt like admitting I was a failure, not just in the relationship, but as a person. This is the part that's hard to talk about. The part that explains why what she did on that call wasn't just a dick move, it was a violation. About 2 years in, I was having a really rough time. Work was kicking my ass, I felt lost, and my confidence was at an all-time low. One night, after a few too many whiskeys, I told her something I'd never told another living soul. It was my deepest, most humiliating memory. Back in college, I was in this big public speaking competition. It was the final round, my ticket to a prestigious internship. I'd practiced for weeks. I got up on that stage in front of hundreds of people, opened my mouth, and nothing. I just froze, total deer-in-the-headlights paralysis. I stammered a few words, my notes were shaking in my hand, and I could feel all these eyes on me, just burning holes into my skin. After what felt like an eternity of agonizing silence, I just mumbled, "I'm sorry," and walked off the stage. I could hear a few people snickering. It was the single most mortifying moment of my life. It shattered something in me. It's the reason I've always preferred working behind the scenes, away from the spotlight. I told Harper all of it. I cried, man, like actually cried. I laid that ugly, shameful part of myself at her feet because I trusted her. She held me, she said all the right things, and she promised it was our secret. It was the foundation of our intimacy, or so I thought. I gave her the key to the most fragile room in my soul, and she promised to keep it safe. Fast forward to 3 days ago, the video call. The third person on that call was Ainsley Vance. Ainsley isn't just a friend, she's a force of nature. She's about 15 years older than me, sharp as a tack, and kind of a legend in the local PR scene. I used to be her junior strategist at an agency we both left a couple of years ago. She was the only senior partner who ever took me seriously, who saw that behind my quiet demeanor, I actually had good ideas. We stayed in touch, grabbing coffee every few months to talk shop. What Harper didn't know, what I hadn't told her because I wanted it to be mine, just for once, was that Ainsley and I were about to go into business together. We'd been secretly working on a business plan for the last 6 months, a new kind of boutique PR firm. She'd handle the big, public-facing roles, the schmoozing, the pitching, the stuff she excelled at. I'd be the head of strategy, the guy behind the curtain making the machinery work. It was my dream. It was my escape plan. This call was the final hurdle. A last run-through of our launch plan before we signed the partnership agreement and started filing the paperwork. I was in my home office, which was really just a corner of our living room. I had my notes, I had my projections. For the first time in a long time, I felt prepared, professional. The call started well. Ainsley was her usual brilliant self. We were vibing, bouncing ideas off each other. Then, about 10 minutes in, Harper breezed in. She was holding a mug of tea. "Hi, Ainsley. So sorry to interrupt," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't leave. She pulled up a chair just next to me, right in the camera's blind spot, but her presence filled the room. And then she started. Ainsley would ask me a question about our financial projections, and before I could answer, Harper would lean in and say, "Oh, he's being very thorough. I always tell him it's better to be too cautious," with a little laugh as if she were my business manager. Ainsley mentioned a past campaign I'd run that she admired. Harper jumped in with, "I remember that one. I helped him come up with the tagline. He gets stuck on the creative sometimes." She hadn't. She told me the tagline I wrote was uninspired. My jaw was so tight I could have cracked a molar. I was trying to project competent future CEO, and she was relentlessly painting me as my boyfriend, the lovable oaf who can't tie his own shoes without my help. I tried to gently steer the conversation back, but it was like trying to turn a battleship with a canoe paddle. Ainsley, bless her professional heart, was trying her best to ignore the interruptions, but the awkwardness was getting thick enough to slice. She tried to smooth things over, to bring it back to our plan. "Well," Ainsley said, "the key is that we both know our strengths. It's why this partnership makes so much sense." That was the opening Harper was waiting for. "Speaking of strengths," Harper chimed in, her voice dripping with that fake, sugary sweetness she used right before she delivered a backhanded compliment. It was a sound that always made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Ainsley, you just have to see this. It's so quintessentially Owen. It's adorable, really. It perfectly explains why he needs a strong partner to, guide him." My blood didn't just run cold, it turned to slush in my veins. My stomach dropped. I knew with a certainty that felt like a physical blow what was coming. I looked at her and my whole face must have been a silent scream. "Don't, please, for the love of God, do not do this." She just gave me a condescending little pat on the arm, a gesture that said, "Oh, relax, I'm in control here. Let the adults handle this." "Don't be so modest, honey," she whispered, but her voice was loud enough for the microphone to pick up. "Let me just share my screen for a second," she said, her voice bright and chipper. She reached over, her hand brushing mine aside as she grabbed my mouse. The physical act was so small, so insignificant, but it felt like a complete usurpation. It was my computer, my meeting, my future, and she was taking the controls as if it were her God-given right. "Harper, no," I said, my voice barely a whisper, choked with a sudden, thick dread. She ignored me. Click, click, click. I watched in a sort of horrified, out-of-body trance as she navigated through my files, my private files, a folder labeled Misc Personal that she had no business being in, and found it. The video files, the one I didn't even know she'd copied from my old hard drive, the one I thought was long gone, College Debate Final Fail Emfer. The file name itself was a punch to the gut. The window popped up, taking over the entire screen, shoving Ainsley's professional, composed face into a tiny box in the corner. And there it was. A grainy, horribly lit video from a decade ago. It was me. A much younger, much thinner, much more terrified version of myself, standing at a wooden podium in front of a maroon curtain. I saw him, that boy who was me, fidgeting with his tie. I watched him shuffle his note cards, the paper visibly trembling. I saw the look of sheer, unadulterated panic wash over his face as he stared out into the darkness of the auditorium. "Harper, what is this?" I managed to say, but my voice was hollow. "SHH, honey, this is the best part," she cooed, her eyes glued to the screen, a smug little smile playing on her lips. She was actually enjoying this. She was getting a genuine thrill from it. On the screen, the boy me opened his mouth. A pathetic, choked sound came out. He tried again. "Gee, good evening," he stammered, his voice cracking like a pubescent teenager's. My topic is the socioeconomic impact of," he trailed off. The silence that followed was deafening, even through the crappy laptop speakers. I could feel the phantom sweat on my palms, the same suffocating, hot flash of shame I felt all those years ago. The video showed me standing there for what felt like an eternity. It was probably only 30 seconds, but it was a lifetime, a statue of failure before I finally mumbled "I'm sorry" and walked off the stage. I could hear a few scattered, cruel snickers from the audience just before the camera mercifully cut off. Harper stopped the video right there. She turned back to the webcam, her smile now wide and triumphant, like a cat dropping a dead mouse on the doorstep. "See," she said, her voice full of that nauseating, patronizing affection. "That's my Owen. He gets so in his head. This is the real him when he doesn't have me to help him through it." And that's when the switch flipped. It wasn't a loud bang, it was a quiet, cold, final click. The buzzing in my head, the constant, low-grade anxiety of trying to please her, of trying to be good enough, it just stopped. All the little compromises, the swallowed insults, the times I'd let her rephrase my stories, the way she'd suggest my clothes, the way I'd shrunk myself down to fit into the box she'd built for me, all of it coalesced into this one, single moment of profound clarity. I saw her for exactly what she was. Not a partner, but a saboteur, not a lover, but a warden who kept me in a prison of my own inadequacy with her as the only key. The shame I felt wasn't about the video anymore. The shame was for the 5 years I had spent letting this person convince me I was broken and that she was my only fix. I had given her the most vulnerable part of myself, not as a gift of intimacy, but as a weapon to be used against me. And she had just used it with relish in front of the one person whose professional respect meant the world to me. I glanced at the little box with Ainsley's face. She wasn't looking at the screen anymore. She was looking down at her desk, at her hands, anywhere but at me. Her expression wasn't pity. It was a deep, uncomfortable embarrassment for me. She was a professional. She was witnessing something deeply unprofessional and deeply cruel, and she was mortified. But Harper didn't see that. She was still basking in the glow of her little power play. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a profound, bottomless emptiness where it all used to be. The project was over, the exhibit was closed. In the thick, humming silence that followed her little performance, I took a slow, deep breath. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 5 years. And then I started to talk. I let the silence hang in the air for a beat longer, letting her little victory lap curdle. I didn't look at her. My focus was entirely on the webcam, on Ainsley's downcast face in the little box. First, I gave a small, apologetic smile. It was a genuine one. "Ainsley," I said, and my voice was surprisingly steady, clear, devoid of the tremor I thought would be there. "I am so sorry you had to see that. That was inappropriate." Ainsley's eyes flickered up, meeting mine through the screen. She saw something in my face, I think. The shock on her own was replaced by a flicker of curiosity. Then I turned my head slowly to look at Harper. She was still smiling, but it was starting to look a little brittle around the edges. She expected me to be flustered, to be angry, to create a scene that would prove her point. I did none of those things. "Harper, thank you," I said, the words falling like ice chips into the room. That was actually a perfect and very timely reminder. Her smile faltered completely. "What?" I turned back to Ainsley, my tone shifting instantly. The defeated boyfriend was gone, and the business partner she knew was back in the room. Ainsley, as that video so vividly demonstrates, getting up in front of a crowd has never been my strong suit. It's a genuine weakness. In fact, it's the primary reason why, in the business proposal I sent you last week, I specifically outlined the division of labor for our new firm. I leaned forward, my voice gaining a quiet confidence. I proposed that you, as the face of the company, would handle all client-facing presentations, all new business pitches, and all public relations events, because you're brilliant at it. It's your superpower, and I, in turn, would be responsible for what I do best, the behind-the-scenes work. The strategic planning, the market research, the content architecture, the crisis management protocols. The engine room, so to speak. Ainsley's expression transformed. The mortification vanished, replaced by a slow-dawning, brilliant smile of pure comprehension. It was a smile of respect. She got it, she got all of it. So that video, I concluded, still looking directly at Ainsley, doesn't show you my weakness. It shows you exactly why our partnership is going to be so successful. We cover each other's blind spots. Harper was staring at me, her mouth slightly agape. The color was draining from her face. This was not the script she had written. "So, Ainsley," I said, my voice crisp and final, "the partnership agreement, I think we're good to go, right?" "Absolutely, Owen," Ainsley said, her voice filled with a newfound warmth and admiration. "Send it over, I'll sign it tonight." "Great," I gave her one last nod. Then, without looking away from the camera, I moved the mouse, clicked the red end call button, and plunged the room into silence. The laptop screen went back to my desktop wallpaper, a serene mountain landscape. It looked alien. I finally turned to Harper. The smugness was gone, replaced by a confused, gathering rage. "What the hell was that, Owen? You embarrassed me in front of her." I just looked at her, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, and I felt nothing. "We're done, Harper," I said. Then I stood up, turned my back on her, and walked into the bedroom. I didn't wait for her response, for the tears, for the anger. I just opened the closet, pulled out my duffel bag, and started putting my clothes into it. Clean break, no debate, no final confrontation. The war was already over. I had just been the last to know, which brings me back here, to this glorious, empty room. I can still hear her voice from 3 days ago echoing in my memory as I packed. It started with disbelief. "Done? What do you mean, done? You can't be done over a joke." I didn't answer. I just kept methodically folding my shirts, placing them in the bag. The silence from me seemed to fuel her panic, which quickly morphed into anger. "Owen, stop being so dramatic. Are you listening to me? You made me look like an idiot. You sided with her over me." I zipped up the duffel bag and walked past her, heading for the front door. She blocked my path, her face a storm of fury and confusion. "Where are you going? You're not seriously leaving, are you, after everything I've done for you?" That was the line. That was the one that made me pause. I looked down at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the beautiful, charismatic woman I fell in love with. I saw a stranger whose validation I no longer needed. "You've done nothing for me, Harper," I said, and my voice was flat, devoid of the emotion she was trying to provoke. "You've only ever done things for yourself, using me as a prop. The show's over. I'm leaving." I stepped around her, opened the door, and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it quietly behind me, the soft click of the latch sounding like the most definitive full stop in the history of the world. My phone started buzzing in my pocket almost immediately. I pulled it out. "Harper," I declined the call. "Harper would like to FaceTime." I declined. A string of texts started pouring in. I didn't read them. I just held down my finger on her contact photo, the one of us smiling on a beach in happier times, and I pressed block. Then I did the same on every social media platform. A clean cut, a total amputation, and now I'm here. I took the first sip of this beer about an hour ago, and the buzzing in my pocket finally made me look. It wasn't her trying to break through from a new number. It was a message from Ainsley, a screenshot of a state filing document, and below it the words, "Official. Congratulations, partner." Partner, I look around this empty room again. No curated furniture, no passive-aggressive art on the walls, no one to tell me the music I'm about to play is unsophisticated. It's just me, and it's enough. It's more than enough. I pull out my phone, open my music app, and scroll way down to a playlist I haven't touched in years. It's full of loud, angry, messy 90s rock, the stuff Harper used to call unrefined noise. I hit shuffle, and the opening riff of a song I love fills the silence. I turn the volume up. And then up again until the bare walls are vibrating with it, and I just sit here on the floor in my empty new life, drinking my cheap beer. And for the first time in 5 years, I feel completely and utterly free.